Get off my land. You don't belong here. That was the first thing she ever said to me. No, hello, no welcome to the neighborhood. Just rage, the kind that rattles you before you even understand why. I'd only been there 2 days, still surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, still trying to believe I'd finally found peace. But the woman in the tailored navy suit saw my quiet little cabin as an act of rebellion. And from that moment, she made it her mission to erase me. I'd moved to the countryside for silence. After years of working as a state GIS analyst, spending days buried in boundary maps and digital coordinates, I wanted air that didn't hum with traffic, and nights that didn't glow orange from city lights. The cabin I found sat on a small ridge beside a forest preserve built in the 1950s, solid oak and stubborn charm. The deed was crystal clear, private land, no HOA jurisdiction. I'd checked every survey, every zoning layer, even walked the property line with GPS. It was my safe spot until she showed up. Her name was Linda Graves, president of the Maple Hollow Homeowners Association, and she carried herself like she ran the county. I remember that first morning so vividly. She marched up my driveway in heels that didn't belong anywhere near gravel, holding a leather binder like a weapon. "Do you have authorization to live here?" she asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. I smiled, showed her my papers, and explained that my land was outside the HOA. She didn't even look down. "We'll see about that," she said, and left with that kind of icy calm that tells you trouble's only just warming up. For a week, I tried to pretend it was nothing. Worked on my projects, took evening walks through the forest, waved to the older couple down the road. But then came the camera. I caught Linda standing at my fence line with a zoom lens, snapping photos like she was gathering evidence. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was documenting potential ecological impact. Her words sounded official, but her eyes told the truth. This was surveillance. That same afternoon, a massive HOA maintenance truck parked across my driveway, blocking me in. The driver mumbled about routine tree work, even though there wasn't a single limb cut. It was like being trapped in a silent war you didn't sign up for. A few days later, I received a government-stamped envelope accusing me of illegal wastewater discharge and environmental violations. The allegations were absurd, but the stress was real. I spent hours digging up inspection reports, septic certificates, photos, maps, everything to prove my innocence. It worked temporarily. The county cleared me, but peace didn't return. Because Linda wasn't interested in rules. She was interested in power. When the county posted a public meeting notice about Maple Hollow boundary expansion, I knew exactly whose fingerprints were on it. I showed up early, sat in the back, and watched as Linda took the podium in her trademark suit, talking about protecting fragile forest ecosystems. Her slides glowed with maps and charts, beautiful, convincing lies. And right in the middle of that new protection zone sat my cabin. I stood to object, calmly explaining that you can't retroactively drag private land into an HOA. She cut me off mid-sentence, smiling sweetly. "This is precisely the kind of misunderstanding we're hoping to prevent," she said. The room laughed politely. The vote passed to further review. It felt like being erased by applause. A few days later, a man called from a company named Green Axis Energy. He said they were scouting land for sustainable solar projects and that my property had strong potential. When I asked who referred him, he casually mentioned they'd been working closely with Maple Hollow's leadership. That's when the puzzle snapped into focus. The environmental crusade wasn't about conservation, it was about profit. Linda wasn't just expanding her HOA, she was positioning it for lucrative development deals. So I did what I do best, I followed the data. Late nights, multiple coffee refills, and miles of digital trails later, I found what she'd been hiding. The maps she'd presented to the county were falsified. Coordinates had been quietly shifted, tiny numerical nudges that redrew entire property lines. The digital files traced back to a shell consulting firm, Ecometric Solutions, registered only a year earlier. Its corporate filings listed a silent partner, L. Graves. She'd built an empire of fake compliance reports and green assessments, all to grab land under the banner of environmental stewardship. I could have gone straight to the police, but I knew how bureaucracy works. Paper trails vanish, files get buried. So I started my own counteroffensive. Installed environmental sensors around my property to gather real time-stamped data. Every air-reading soil test and water sample went straight to cloud storage. I called it my insurance policy proof she couldn't twist. Then I reached out to a retired county engineer named Tom Heller, who'd left the department the same year Ecometric was formed. Over coffee in a diner 2 towns away, he confirmed everything. Officials had been quietly paid consulting fees to advise on projects that always favored Linda's companies. He even kept original survey files showing the unaltered boundaries. That was the missing piece. For a month, I organized everything: maps, timestamps, payments, internal emails Tom had saved. I sent complete evidence packets to the State Attorney General, the EPA, and the FBI. Then waited. The silence felt endless. Until I got a call from Special Agent Ramirez from the Environmental Crimes Unit. My findings had triggered a joint investigation. They wanted me present at a policy review meeting where Linda was scheduled to present her latest expansion. Only this time she'd be performing for federal investigators disguised as panel members. That day I arrived early, laptop ready. Linda walked in glowing with confidence, flanked by 2 associates. She launched into her pitch about community integrity and ecological accountability. Her graphs soared, her voice dripped authority. Then came my turn. I mirrored her setup, same screen, same map, but with truth instead of fiction. On the left, I said, are the authentic county coordinates. On the right, the altered versions uploaded 6 months later. The difference was subtle but undeniable. Gasps rippled through the room. I followed with the money trail, the shell companies, the bank transfers. By the time Tom testified, her associates were whispering frantically. That's when Agent Ramirez stood up, flashed her badge, and said, "This is now a federal investigation." The room froze. Linda's face went pale as marshals walked in. Her own slides still glowing behind her, she was cuffed without a word. The aftermath unfolded fast. Ecometric's offices were raided, Green Axis executives arrested, and several county officials indicted. Linda pled guilty to fraud and racketeering, sentenced to 12 years, and fined nearly $1 million. My evidence became part of a national case study on GIS-based environmental crimes. The county rewrote its regulations requiring independent verifications and public transparency on every zoning map. They even hired me to help design the new system. It took months for the tension to fade. Neighbors who once avoided me started waving again. The old ranger stopped by with pie and an apology. My reputation was restored, but what I valued most was the quiet, the honest, earned quiet that comes after you stand your ground and win. I still live in that cabin, still listen to the wind through the pines. Every morning I sip coffee on the porch that started it all, looking out at the forest she tried to own. Sometimes I think about how small the spark was that started everything, a single accusation shouted across a driveway. Power can make people believe they own more than they do. But truth is patient. It waits in the data, in the soil, in every unaltered line on a map. If you were in my place, would you have fought back or packed up and left? Tell me in the comments. I want to know how you'd handle someone like Linda. And if you believe truth still matters, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories out here, some you won't believe until you see the lines yourself.